Profiles, profiles, profiles. If you haven't noticed, I love drawing side profiles. They have become one of my favorite face angles to draw, and in this video I'm going to show you how I draw them fast and easy. We'll cover how to draw male and female profiles, people of different ages, and I'll share some of my favorite tips and tricks along the way. Plus, I'll go over the most common mistakes I see beginners make when drawing profiles and how you can avoid making them. I promise that after this video, you'll never have a problem drawing profiles ever again. When drawing something new or something that I find challenging, I like to start by understanding the subject first. This way I can approach it with a much better understanding. So let's take a quick look at what goes on underneath the face to get those proportions right. If you take a look at the skull in profile view, you can see that it's not a perfectly round sphere. It's more elongated to make space for the brain. In the front, you can see the hole for the eye socket, which would be round in a front view, but from the side it appears a bit more triangular. And right under that, you'll notice the cheekbones sitting just below the eye sockets. From the front, we can also observe a little dip below the forehead right before the nose starts. This can vary from person to person, but we'll get more into that later. Then the nose would be here, and underneath it we have the top and bottom rows of teeth, followed by the chin. The chin then connects into the jawline and goes up to where the ear would be. So here's what we know so far. The skull is not perfectly round from the side. The eye socket from this angle looks more like a triangle than a circle. And right below sits the cheekbone. There's a little dip in between the forehead and the nose. And the chin connects to the jawline up to the ear. With all this in mind, let's take a look at some references. Here we have both male and female references, and you'll notice they all follow the same basic rules. The eye socket looks more like a triangle, there's a dip between the forehead and the nose, and the chin connects to the jawline and then goes up to the ear, which is found a bit farther back than the halfway point of the skull. Now, keep in mind that the dip of the nose, or the indent we can call it, can vary from person to person depending on genetics and where they're from. For example, I've noticed that many people from East Asia don't have this dip at the nose bridge as pronounced, or they may not have it at all. Their nose often comes straight down from the forehead without this indent. Also, the jaw typically sits further back than the nose or right below it, but usually doesn't extend past it unless stylized. We can also see that the cheek isn't completely flat, it's more rounded and sits on top of the cheekbone right under the eye. The eyebrow curves around the face, getting closer to the edge, and it extends further out than the eye. This helps in accurately positioning the eye socket from a profile view. You have to make sure the eye fits within the eye socket. The top lip will usually sit a bit forward, showing that there are teeth underneath, and the bottom lip will have a bit of a dip right before going into the chin. Another important thing to note is that faces, both male and female, can be divided into thirds. First, from the forehead to the eyebrows, then from the eyebrows to the bottom of the nose, and from the nose to the chin. This is very helpful when checking your proportions. By varying these sections, you can get different outcomes. Additionally, the eyes and eyebrows line up with the top of the ear, the nose lines up with the bottom of the ear, and the eyes line up with the corners of the mouth. Personally, I like using the ear as an anchor point. From here, you can find where the rest of the facial features will go. People from different ethnicities tend to have slightly different facial proportions. For example, the boy on the right, the lips don't go past his nose, and on the contrary, the boy on the left, you can see how both his lips and the nose line up right under each other. So you just have to make sure to keep this in mind and really take a look at your subject and draw it accordingly in your style. The facial features of women tend to be quite soft and round. They usually have bigger eyes and lips, thinner eyebrows, softer jawlines, and thinner necks compared to men. Men, on the other hand, typically have smaller eyes, thinner lips, sharper jawlines, thicker eyebrows, and thicker necks. And of course, don't forget the Adam's apple. Remember that everyone is unique and our facial features vary based on our backgrounds and where we come from, so feel free to draw however you like. Let's take a quick look at some art references now. I've compiled a few drawings from some really talented artists. I personally love seeing how other artists stylize their work and emphasize different facial features in their own unique ways. It really helps me to see things from a different perspective and allows me to incorporate those insights into my own drawings. In these references, you can clearly see the differences between men's and women's faces. The women typically have softer features, while the men have sharper and more angular ones. Some artists stick closer to realistic proportions, while others push the stylization a bit more. However, you can always tell that they understand the form of the skull underneath, and it shows through in their drawings. Here I have some Disney references. The artists at Disney know what they're doing, so I always like to take a look at how they stylize certain features. When it comes to profiles, Disney takes a very stylized approach. They really emphasize the dip between the forehead and the nose, giving their female characters a tiny, cute little button nose. This makes them look more childlike and gives them a rounder, cuter face. They also tend to have thinner, longer necks compared to the men. This, along with giving them big doe eyes, really sells the baby face look. Since the eyes are so big, they tend to look a bit more rounded from the profile view rather than just triangular like we've been typically seeing. But again, this comes down to style. For male characters, Disney usually keeps the proportions a bit more realistic. They make the nose a bit more angular and not so small, give them a sharp, defined chin and jawline, and make their necks thicker. The eyes also tend to be a little bit smaller compared to their female characters. Okay, now that we have all this information, let's get to drawing. I'm gonna start with drawing the elongated circle for the skull, which is not gonna be perfectly round, remember that. Then I'm drawing a line for the front of the face, followed by another line for the jawline and a circle for the ear. Then I draw the back of the head and the neck. I like starting out simple and adding the ear in the early stages because it can be used as an anchor point to figure out where the rest of the features will be placed. Now, from the ear, I'm drawing a line towards the front of the face, and this is where the eye and the bottom of the nose will go. Then I'm starting to define the front of the face, starting with the forehead, then adding the indent below, and drawing the nose bridge and the bottom of the nose. After, I draw the triangle shape for the eye, and tweak the jawline a bit using Liquify. I then add in the brow and start working on the lips. Then I flip the canvas to make sure everything is looking right and start drawing the ear. All that's left is refining the neck and head shape. From here you can add hair and any other details. After I'm done, I like to double check my proportions. Notice how everything lines up and how I made sure to keep her features round. If you notice something looks a bit off at the end, you can always use the Liquify tool to fix any mistakes. Now let's draw a man. Drawing men follows the same process. Start with an oval for the head and add the guidelines for the front of the face and jawline. Then add the circle for the ear to use as an anchor point. This depends on your style, but I like drawing men with deeper nose indents, with wider noses, sharper jawlines, a bit thicker eyebrows, and smaller eyes. Don't forget to flip your canvas every few minutes to make sure everything is looking right. And at the end, we're checking the proportions by lining up the ear with the eye and nose, and you can see how everything lines up just right. Here are both of our sketches, and you can see the subtle differences between the two. Now, let's go over some common mistakes when drawing profiles. Here we have two examples. Take a look at them and let me know if there's anything that seems off about these two. Can you spot any mistakes at all? Let's analyze them. For the one on the left, you can notice right away that the space between the brow and hairline is too short, making the forehead too small. If you draw a line from the ear to the front of the face, you can see that the ear doesn't align to the eye or the nose, making her ear way too low. For the one on the right is the opposite. The forehead is way too long, the eye and eyebrow are too far into the face, and most importantly, the eye is drawn in a completely different perspective, making him look kind of like a fish. These are some pretty easy mistakes to make that I see often, so let's take a look and see how we can improve them. Starting with the left sketch, we need to extend her forehead and move up her ear. A good way to double check this is by flipping your canvas. For the right sketch, we need to redraw the eye with the correct perspective using the triangle shape and move the eye and brow closer to the edge of the face. We should lower the top of his head to make the forehead smaller. Now let's compare the before and after. We can see that the ears line up with the eyes and nose, and the distance from the eyebrow to the hairline is much more accurate. The distance from the nose to the chin is also correct. Previously, her chin extended outwards a bit and her eyebrow was too far back. I fixed this by extending the eyebrow closer to the edge of the face and adjusting her chin and nose bridge. For him, the main difference was the eye. It was corrected from a front view to the proper side view by drawing it as a triangle. I also moved the eyebrow and eye closer to the edge of the face. Now everything looks good. Now we're gonna take a closer look at the facial features and how to draw them in more detail. The way you draw facial features makes a big impact. By changing one small line, you can see how the entire face changes. Notice how changing the shapes and the lines of the nose and the lips can create entirely different looks. Starting out with the ear, the way I like to draw the ear is with one continuous line. You're gonna start at the top and make a little loop and go down into it and make a little hook and then right back up into the loop. Same for the other ear, just invert it. I hope that makes sense. If you look at it, you know what I'm trying to say. Next are noses, which they come in various shapes and sizes. By altering the shape of the bridge and the tip, you can achieve quite a few different unique and diverse results. You can make different looking lips by varying the shapes of the top and bottom lip, like making the top lip thinner than the bottom lip and vice versa. The way I draw thinner lips versus fuller, it's a bit different. For thinner lips, it kind of looks more like a V shape, and as the lips get bigger and fuller, they kind of look a bit more square and triangular at the bottom, as you can see on these examples here. For eyes, you can get different results by adjusting the size of the top and bottom eyelids and the eyelash size. One tip for drawing eyes in profile is to draw them as the triangles instead of circles as we discussed, but keep the eyeball curved for the cornea, not completely flat. And this is important. The pupil will be in the middle of the iris and it will look a bit more like the letter D or an inverted letter D, depending on which eye you're looking at, instead of a full round circle, like it appears from the front. This one change can really make the eyes look a bit more realistic. At the end, you can see the subtle differences between each nose, lip, and eye. These small variations can significantly impact how the face looks. So have fun experimenting with different shapes and sizes of each feature and see how many different results you can achieve. Lastly, let's take a look at people of different ages and their features. As time goes by and we get older, our skin tends to sag due to gravity in the natural aging process. You'll usually notice some loose skin around the neck, puffier eye bags, and heavier eyelids. The earlobes also tend to be a bit longer, and the skin around the mouth can pull in towards the teeth, making the lips look thinner. Babies are the complete opposite. Their skulls and bones are not fully formed, so they have rounder faces, bigger eyes, and larger foreheads. The dip between the forehead and the nose tends to be much deeper, and their foreheads are more curved from the side, similar to the Disney characters. They have small little button noses and little puffy lips, and of course, really round cheeks and chubby necks. Now let's draw them. Drawing older people follows the same principle. I'm sure by now you know what to do. Starting with the oval for the skull, add the guidelines for the front of the face and jawline, then add the circle for the ear to use as an anchor point. Pay attention to the skin folds and wrinkles on the face. You'll usually find them around the eyes, neck, forehead, and lips. This drawing was pretty fun for me since it's quite different from what I usually draw. It was a really great practice. I think it's good to get outside your comfort zone and draw things that you wouldn't usually draw, because this is how we grow as artists. The same principle applies to our girl here. This isn't a complete profile view. You can see her right eye peeking from the other side, so make sure to add that in. Notice how I'm paying attention to the folds in the skin and adding them accordingly. It's all about paying attention and noticing where gravity affects the face the most. With babies' heads, you can often get away with drawing them as full circles. This is the one exception. The top of the ear lines up with the eyes or eyebrows, and the bottom with the lips. Babies have much larger heads compared to their bodies, so keep that in mind. Don't forget to make their cheeks extra rounded and their nose with a very pronounced indent. And here are our 4 finished sketches. You can definitely see the difference between these 2 different age groups. Let's do a quick summary. When drawing side profiles, keep in mind the form of the skull underneath, including its elongated shape, triangular eye sockets, cheekbones, and the chin to jawline connection. Remember to recognize the differences in facial features between men and women, soft and round for women and sharp and angular for men, and with different ages, sagging skin and puffier eyes for the elderly, and rounder faces and chubby necks for babies. Some drawing tips to keep in mind. Use the ear as an anchor point for your facial features. Divide the face into thirds for more accurate proportions. Align the eyes and eyebrows with the top of the ear, the nose with the bottom of the ear, and the eyes with the corner of the mouth. Don't forget to double check your proportions by flipping your canvas. And finally, don't forget to practice. Remember, the practice is key to mastering these techniques. So start experimenting with drawing different profiles of people with different background, different ages, and with time and persistence, you'll gain confidence and refine your skills in no time. That is all the information I have for you guys today. I know it was a lot, but I really hope that you can get something out of this. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments if you have any tips on drawing profiles that I didn't cover in this video. If you enjoy learning about my process and want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe. I truly appreciate you and I believe in you. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.